Good morning, Sandy.
Amy, good morning.
How are you doing today?
You know what? I am doing great. I'm alive. I'm feeling good. Sun shining, sky is blue.
Good.
My husband's good. Yeah, no complaints today. And I leave tomorrow to spend a week with my parents. And
Nice.
Barrett's going to ski with his son, which for
Nice.
privacy purposes, it's all fine because by the time this goes out for recording, I will be home. So
You'll be back home.
for all the
Good.
robbers out there listening, I will be home with my dog.
I don't think we attract the robbers to this
I
podcast.
don't think we do, Amy, but
Possibly.
sometimes I'll get a comment saying you shouldn't say things like that.
Yeah. Well, I know we're pretty open on this podcast, which I really enjoy because that gives everybody the feeling that we're being authentic, we're being real, we're not putting on this persona of perfection. I mean, look at us today. I'm not commenting on your looks, but I'm like in a sweatshirt with my hair pulled back and I'm completely comfortable sharing no makeup.
Right.
It's like I am who I am today. And the point of this is the conversations we have, not the way we look. And so anyway,
I think
just
that actually works into our conversation today, back to
yes.
change and the older you get and a different mindset, right? And what's acceptable. And I'll tell you too, back to what we talk about in this podcast, all my relationships, relationships in my circle are very open. And if they don't take me as I am, that's not going to be in my relationship and vice versa.
Right.
So my relationship to you, the listeners, is going to be authentic. And my answer, if somebody says, well, I don't really like it that you said this might not be the podcast for them either.
Right,
Right.
right. And
Because
we're
I'm not
gonna,
going to say what people want to hear. Right.
yes,
Doesn't mean I'm right. I'm not trying to profess that I'm right.
right. And the other thing, so what came to my mind is we are posting videos on LinkedIn and we are not dressed professionally to show videos, but so that thought went through my mind and then I'm like, I don't care. Like I want people to pay attention to our words and our thoughts, not how we look and how we present ourselves.
So this will lead into our conversation.
Yes.
It's kind of funny. Back when I was making a big change, because we're talking about change and change as you get older, but specifically career change.
Yes.
I was setting up my website. And again, the gal I was working with was great. She did my logo and I get compliments all the time on my logo, but the pictures that I gave her for my website, she looked at me, super sweet, and younger gal, younger than me, and said, I have a list I'll give to you on how to professionally dress for pictures on your website. And first of all, it's like, hey, if somebody knows how to dress professionally, it's me. I'm sorry, I don't want to be, but I did it for years. I was a good dresser at work. I was in charge of teaching, if somebody wasn't dressing, I know that gig. But I remember going back and thinking about it and thinking, I don't, that doesn't relate to where I'm at in life and what I have to offer. And that isn't what I want to look like because that's not me anymore. And it is not what I'm doing or who I'm trying to impress. And I'm perfectly fine with wearing a scarf that has a floral print on it. And yeah, I'm not sitting in a board meeting for Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's okay. I'm
Right.
okay with this. This is me now. And I'm okay with this change.
Yeah.
I'm not going back to suits.
Yes. And you are choosing your clothing very intentionally to project who you actually are, not who you think you need to look like or who you need to impress. So
And
good
my
for you.
intentionality of my sweatshirt today is I'm going to yoga right after.
And mine is it's Red Friday in Kansas City
Is it?
because
Oh, yes.
yeah, they always have Red Friday, just like in
Oh,
Nebraska.
Chiefs play
So
Denver, which they'll
yeah,
probably but yeah, they're
fingers crossed, I hope. Okay. So today we're talking about change, specifically career changes, and a conversation about you can't do that. Like, because a lot of women and men our age, you get into your 50s and there's this little bit of I just need to write it out. I just need to, changing is just not in my cards right now. So I've made my choices and that's it.
That's, it's yeah, I played my cards. Now I got to play it out. And the
Exactly.
reaction from other people,
Yeah.
you can't do that. I mean, just almost frightened if you bring up that you're going to do something different. Like it's that I'm gambling at I'm picturing myself putting in another 100 at the gambling casino station, and my friends say, you can't do that. You could lose it
Right.
all.
Right. One of the things that I want to inspire people with is the story of my mom. Okay. Because she's in her 70s now. She had children in the late 60s, early 70s, had started college, but got married and got pregnant really quick. And so she stopped college. Then when we were probably I was probably 7 or 8, she went back to school and got it like a tech degree, like so she could she was a phlebotomist, so she could draw
Okay.
blood. That was kind
Okay.
of her. So she did that.
And you were
And
7 or 8. Okay.
when I was 7 or 8, so in the mid 70s,
Okay.
or late 70s. And then she started working at a small clinic and became the manager of their lab. Then when we moved to Kansas City, she got a job and she ended up going and getting her master's. So at some point she must have finished her bachelor's. I don't remember that, but I must have been too young. But she got her master's when she was 50. She graduated with her MBA.
Wow.
And so her journey, and then from 50 to early 60s or mid 60s, she had a career that took her all over the world. And I would tell you, watching her, and I always forget she got her MBA when she was 50, and her real success and where she would probably describe herself as thriving happened from 50 to like 60 when she retired. And I can't remember, but it was a good 10 to 15 years
That's an
that
awesome
she
story.
really thrived. Yes.
What was the trigger, Amy, that motivated her to go back to get her MBA, and specifically the MBA? Do you know the transition to say,
She was working in management for a company and they would pay for it. And so she was like, well, if they're going to pay for it, I'm going to do it. And so she did it. And that just opened up a whole world of possibility. So accessibility, I would just say that was probably the key for her. And plus, she's also a lifelong learner. So she likes to learn about new stuff. So probably those two things of I like to learn, and here it's going to be given to me. I might as well take advantage.
I think it's great to hear a story specifically like this and near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
We all see the signs with the 90-year-old woman saying motivation, just got her degree at night, and those are all great things. But then there's the practicality and the real of, okay, we love that story, kind of like the Olympian who was past their prime. But the real is not only she had to be open-hearted and open-minded to say, you know what, I'm going to take on this opportunity, even though maybe it's more the younger people that are doing it. Because traditionally, I would say the typical MBA is going to be early 30s, got their degree, worked, and then go back and get it after the fact. But then there's the other part of the common response of people when you're making a career change later in life is skepticism. And
yeah.
I find the ones where it's not pure of heart, I wouldn't even tell them, right? So usually it's pure, like, we're scared for you. You can't do that. How are you going to do that? Does that make any sense? Are you putting any money into this? Because can you really get a return on the investment? And so you have to really battle that too, because when you're in your 30s, guess what people say? Back to the MBA, good for you. That'll be good for your career. That'll be great on your resume. I bet she didn't. There were definitely some people I bet who said good for you, but I bet there was a fair share of people that were skeptical about it and said, should you really be doing that?
Right. Spending a lot of time and energy doing something that even though she didn't have to pay for it, but
Right.
could have had to, it was a personal investment in time and energy. And I don't know. I would be curious to ask her if she felt supported. I do know recently I was coming across the videos and we were at her graduation. And I just remember her, and it was right at Reagan's first birthday. So this was in 97 that she graduated. And I just remember her crying and the joy that she was feeling. And I remember being so proud of her that she had done this. But I don't know that she had gotten support the whole time or not. That's a good question because it took a lot of time.
So I think one interesting thing I've been thinking about why do people respond like that? And first I'll say where the idea really came in my head about this whole, wow, I think I'm always going to be the person that always is open to change. And I can't imagine ever being in that place because I'd never hear it, right? First of all, 30s, 40s, you can do anything, you got this. Wow, she's doing one more thing. That's awesome, right? And when I was in my early 40s, I was working with a company that was primarily run by people from Ireland. And the main guy, even though he was younger, a little bit younger than me, he did a lot of all kind of psychological type training, a lot of motivational, so how people are wired to get salesmen motivated, to get people motivated. And he made the comment to me when we were hiring, and again, I was in my early 40s, he made the comment on several occasions when a candidate that he believed to be around 50 or over 50, he'd say, oh, statistically, once they're 50, they don't want to make changes. We have to be really careful about hiring people around that age, because once you reach 50, and everything with his was scientific and statistical. I've not looked up the stats, but at the time I thought, well, that's crazy. Why would that be any different 10 years from now? But yet I can feel it, not, I would say in the environment of the people I'm by, that there definitely is a change after 50 about how people respond personally, if they want change, if they want to do something different, and then also how other people perceive it. So at the time, I thought he was kind of crazy. It was a crazy stat that it really was the person. But I mean, there's definitely some science behind that statistic.
Yeah. And anecdotally, yes, I will tell you, change at 50. I think it's hard because at 50, you're so established in your career, typically, that if you are going to change, you're giving up something. You're giving up a lot versus in your 30s, when you know that you have 20 more years, 30 more years of work, you know that you can reestablish yourself.
It's in the past, we've talked a lot about the sunk cost, how people don't get out of relationships.
Yeah.
Because the sunk cost, I've invested so much time, so much into this relationship that somebody from the outside would say, oh my gosh, you're so unhappy, but there is this whole perception of the sunk cost, the investment. The same thing applies here, because now if you go through the timeline, we would have this happen a lot in the accounting world, that we would get new graduates out of college and you either love accounting or you really don't love it. And they'd say, oh, guess what? I did 5 years in college and I don't want to do this. I'm going to be a doctor. Like completely different, right? What goes through our heads as the person on the outside? Oh, there's a sunk cost in 5 years of college, right? But okay, better they do it now than later. Okay, so we kind of give them a buy, but there's that initial, oh, I bet their parents are not very happy, right?
Right.
And then you've got midlife, like let's say 30s, that totally changed something. There's a little bit of sunk cost, but there's kind of an excitement about a new opportunity. Like, oh, you've got all this time to reinvest, right? Kind of like the stock market. If you can be riskier when you're younger, but then the older you get, there is this fear that you've the time wasn't worth it. So it's the thought that the time wasn't worth it. But I think opposite, Amy, you don't have to do the experiences are always worth it. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have to do the exact same skill set or product, or it's the experience, it's the relationships, it's what you learned about business, life, people, but it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be a niche or an industry. We're bigger than that as humans, and at any age, you can reinvent yourself, and that doesn't make the experiences not worthwhile.
Right. Completely. I kept thinking of the word alignment. In your 50s, and you can do this through your whole life, is better align your interests, your passions with your job. But in your 50s, you know yourself better. You know, you're, especially as a mother, my children were driving a lot of my alignments in my 30s and 40s, like what school they were going to, what activities they were doing. That was where I was volunteering, where I was meeting people, and where I was aligning myself with that. And now I don't have that. So now I can align for what my real passion is. I'm not saying I couldn't have done it before, but I didn't have the time before. So
Right.
now there's this availability of time, and I know myself really well. So we can align ourselves in our 50s to our passions and what we really want to do. And that feels really good.
And it's not necessarily so different, back to it's aligning, but there's also stepping stones. And I use that term a lot. So basically my background was finance, accounting, CPA firm, consulting, and the niche was healthcare. Okay. So when I did from CPA firm back to healthcare consulting, accounting, finance, then I did the primary care center. And what didn't align for me is that the niche of healthcare was not something I got into the startup because I wanted to fix something big and make people's lives better. And I quickly found out that I couldn't have that impact. I I can't work on something that I can't fix. It's just not an innate thing that I can do. So healthcare just didn't work out for me anymore. I just wasn't interested in working in healthcare anymore because it didn't align with my experiences, skills, and where I brought value. Because where I bring value is making things better and working directly with people. But I had people, Amy, that would take me to dinner when I went off to do consulting and say, you have to stay in healthcare. And you have to, I heard you have to lead with finance, you have to do healthcare. I kept getting told what I had to do. It kind of reminded me of people being a little nervous when I got divorced, that they are afraid I was going to just go off and marry somebody, which I pretty much did, but I made a good choice. And so they were scared for me that I had somebody I went to lunch with that said, damn it, everybody goes through a big change and they think they're going to be a life coach, and you have to. And I kept hearing it. And I found myself trying to please both what I wanted to do and what my audience was telling me to do. So I was really waffling between both. And it's funny because if I go back and look at, I just changed my LinkedIn to totally clean it up. If I looked at before, I was trying to be everything to everybody. Like, what if my old friend that was my mentor read this that says you have to stay in healthcare? I was trying to be everything to everybody, but at the end, you have to be authentic to yourself and you have to believe in yourself that if you want the change, only you can make it happen. And even with the best intentions, not everybody knows those experiences, your personal alignment, like you talked about.
Right.
Only you know that. And a good coach is going to coach you through that. And same with a good mentor.
Right.
The people on the peripheral, they just know your LinkedIn usually, or your story that brought you past success. Only you know how to use that to gain future success.
Well put. I love that, Sandy. Um, the other thing that I was noticing when you're shifting, because I am in the middle of this realignment,
Mhm.
is it's a lot of work.
It is
Like,
a lot of work. So let's be real.
I
There,
know.
be real. The real is when you get older, a lot of work. You also know the things that take a lot of work that don't always pan out.
Yes, that's true. That very well put. Because like there's certain things that you put energy into before that was a waste of time. Like just an example is I got an invitation to an event here in Kansas City to have a booth and it costs so much money and you're there like all weekend. And I'm like, yeah, I've done that before. And it was a waste of my time and money. Personally, it just
Didn't work
didn't
for you.
there was no return on investment. I'm sure I don't want to bash that because I know some people have great success and some businesses have great, but didn't work for me. And I actually contemplated it because I'm in a new city now. And I was like, oh, maybe this would be good. And then I was like, oh no, I've done this before. This does not play out how I hope it'll play out. And then it's kind of going through the thought process of, okay, what did work before and capitalizing on that and trying to find your path of least resistance to get to that success. But that's hard. Like this is work. I'm thinking through things. I'm redoing my website. Like there's this whole thing of reestablishing yourself and as who you want to be.
Right.
So
No,
it's,
so there's some reality in sunk cost and
yeah,
experience that there can be when you're reinventing what you're doing, there is effort. It doesn't just magically happen.
no,
Because part of it too is you are recognized within whether network or otherwise, and you have to re-educate, right? And
yes,
depending on what you're doing, you know, you have to re-educate even your mom, back when she got her MBA, she had to change her resume when
yeah,
she went for the new job, or she had to know what her new elevator speech was when she explained to people. Even no matter what you do,
exactly.
there is work in changing that.
And I will tell you in Kansas City or in Omaha. So my situation is, so you went through your whole career, you described what you'd gone through. Mine is I've been doing owner of Freshly Organized since 2008, doing mostly residential organizing, but I was also doing some business consulting as productivity and that's really where my skills are more so. And I really love doing it, although I do love to organize a good kitchen. So I will say I still love that stuff. But anyway, so I am shifting to a small business focus. And so I'm shifting away from Freshly Organized. But what was happening, what I'm recognizing is in Omaha, I was working off of referrals.
Mhm.
That was my marketing. I was my clients were sending new people to me. My friends were sending people to me. I had this whole network. And so I didn't have to do marketing. I didn't have to do networking. I didn't have to do anything to get business. It was just naturally, organically coming to me because I had been there for so long doing it. I
Right.
was known in the community. So coming to Omaha and reestablishing as a business, small business, I'm now,
Coming to Kansas City.
or coming to Kansas City. I'm sorry.
Nope, I just want to make sure everybody's clear. She is not back in Omaha.
Like I'm going back and forth. Anyway, I'm here and trying to reestablish myself to a community that I don't know anything about. That is where the work is going to be for me.
Right.
Who do I need to meet? Where do I need to go? Where's a good use of my time? And anyway, it's energizing and it's exciting, but it's also a little bit intimidating.
It's different, and change is hard. The older you get and the more what is it? The more you become accustomed to what you have, the harder it is to change things, the more comfortable you get.
Yes, it's
And when you
easy.
have a referral base and they keep coming, I mean, it's,
Yeah, it was like cake. I mean, I was just like, all right, just keep working, keep doing what I was doing. Location forced me to change, which is work, but it exciting, fun. Here's an example. Wednesday night at our apartment complex, and we are in an urban area in Kansas City. There was a chef that lives in the apartment complex, and she did a food demo in the kitchen. And she works for a nonprofit
mhm.
that serves meals to families and I don't, but one of the things that their nonprofit does is they train people to work in the culinary business. So they have a whole school for people who haven't had access to this type of training who want to do it.
Nice.
And it's this, anyway, they are getting people jobs. They're training and they're getting people jobs. So I was listening to her talk and it's nearby. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am going to volunteer to help. And so that's the fun and exciting part of it is finding the places and um, having the opportunity to try something different. So I sent an email yesterday and I'm like, all right, so here's who I am. This is how I can help. I can help with streamlining processes or, I can do that stuff. Or if you just want me to scoop meatballs, I can help doing
I can
that.
do
So
that.
it was a little bit like I can help with this bigger piece, or I can just be hands-on help. I don't care. And I'm just excited to get to know her and get to know her community and do something good for because I have time to do it right now.
It's being open-minded and open-hearted to, opportunities. And I'll tell you, it's interesting you bring up location, because the reality is that the stepping stones before I left Omaha, it was very difficult not to lead in finance because I got so many really good situations and projects that led with that. But I knew in my heart that I was building something different that would always have finance, but finance is the secret sauce on the back end for me. I lead with people now, and finance is still there, but I approach things in a different way. It was really the move that opened things up for me. And I had my year in Boise where I really thought through and developed the different structure, the workshops, the thought process. But what's interesting is when I came to Durango and I got involved with the chamber, I got involved with the Entrepreneurial Association, different things here. I had also gave my elevator speech was I previously was in finance and accounting, and now I am a consultant, which means I do a lot of different things, because I thought I don't want to bring myself out with finance, but I'm really not ready to say what I'm doing. And I was working that out too. But here's the funny part, Amy, is fast forward, I'd been here for 2 years, and a lady that I'd known through working, volunteering at the chamber, being a diplomat, going to ribbon cuttings, we were standing talking to some other women, and it was a golf outing, and they said, what do you do? And I said, well, I previously, was in finance and worked at an accounting firm in healthcare. And she said, what are you doing now? And I paused because I was going to say I'm a consultant, which means I can do anything, all kinds of different things. And this lady said she's a promoter of people.
Oh,
And I thought, okay, I've never come out and said I am, because really what I'm doing now is I'm a value consultant and I'm a transition coach. And I have workshops and coaching that help get people through a successful transition. Okay. That is value based. So I'm a values advocate. I help people find their value DNA, work it, live it, practice it, but then have a specific roadmap that is very specific with finance, relationships, time, well-being, and really to have their plan to make their transition, which is typically work, move, but can be used in softer things too. But I thought it was so interesting that her comment was she's a promoter of people, not she's a guru with numbers, not, and I thought, okay, I like this. This is, she knows me from nothing else than my elevator speech, but that's really, kind of like your point on whatever you're there to help with, people also see your value and worth. And that was a big compliment to me,
I
because
love that. That is
that's
a
what I
great
lead with instead of
compliment.
finances, promoting the people, helping them know and live and embrace their value proposition, and then giving them the roadmap to get to where they want to go. And finance goes in there. We live in a capitalistic society. Finance is, back to your thing with alignment, time, all those things work into it because it has to align with your life.
Right. Yeah,
So anyway, there you go.
that's exciting. I think I love the people promoter because that does describe you very well. So that's great. So now I am, so to recap what I'm doing, I'm going to be working with small businesses. That's going to be my primary focus, helping entrepreneurs who are doing it all have better work-life balance. Because I think entrepreneurs, they give all of their time to starting up and running businesses, and they sometimes prioritize that over the other stuff that's important. So helping them with time management and things like that so that they can be productive in the workday and have good boundaries over personal time and still enjoy life.
Love it. I love it.
I
And
know.
it's interesting to immersing it in new networks with new people, new places. You do become more uber conscious of what you bring to the table.
Yes.
And I also think that being open-minded and open-hearted and listening, and part of that is back to being in our 50s. I think we're much better equipped to see experiences and things as more immersive in what we're getting out of it and what we're bringing to the table than we did when we were in our 30s.
Well, agree. And the other thing is we don't get caught up in trends. Like we've seen what works over a long period of time, and there might be this trend, but it's a little bit, you know, we know what works, where there's some wisdom in there.
There's some wisdom. I like it.
Okay, so let's talk about the real of this, you can't do that. And we mentioned it a little bit before. The real is it's hard work. It's hard
Right.
work to change. But what's the ideal, Sandy? You tap on the ideal.
You know what? The ideal is understanding what you really want and how you want to live those years, whether it be career. What are the changes you want, need? Are you happy where you're at now? There doesn't have to be change. This isn't all about, okay, now you're 50, darn it, you need to do something new. And they can be small changes. It doesn't have to be a huge career change. You're a continual learner, maybe go out and add a credential that you thought you didn't have time for before. So I think the real is analyzing where you're at and what you want in the future, but you do have a future. We don't know how many years that is, but how do you want those years to look? And you're in charge of that roadmap.
Very true. So to close up, my father passed away when he was 60 years old, sudden cardiac arrest. I will tell you, when I hit 50, I was super aware of that. And I was like, how do I want to spend my last 10 years? If I only have 10 years, because we don't know how long we have. He had no idea. Like, we had no idea he was going to leave us so early. But that awareness that we only have limited amount of time, do what feels right for you and is aligned for you, and stop trying to please other people and doing what they expect you to do.
So the naysayers, whether they're pure emotive or not, don't worry about them.
Right. Surround yourself with
how much
people.
or what you want to explain is totally up to you.
Yeah.
You know, and I love, back to final little quick thing. My mom, I said to her, we're working on all these memory things. Now we're into the videotapes. I'm working with my son and we're redoing all the videos, and it's been a ton of fun. And even though our family will bring back memories for other people's families on, oh, I wish I had that tape, but it brought me back to the Christmas of 1979. And I told my mom, I said, man, if I had to do it all over again, I'd be a documentary filmmaker,
Yeah.
and then writing the books. She said, well, why don't you? And you still can. And
Yeah,
I love that she had,
oh,
her faith in me wasn't, oh, that would have been a great career for you. But her immediate reaction is, well, go for it. You should do it.
I love that. Well, and you think about it, my mom's probably the same way. We're young to them. Like we still have plenty of time. And
Right.
then you think about them being in their 70s, 80s. I don't know how old your parents are. My mom's in her upper 70s,
That's what my mom
but
is.
you know, that's 25 years away from me. And that's a lot of time.
Right.
25 years. I
Right. So
mean,
not
that's a
everybody's
whole new
naysayers.
career.
Not
Yeah.
everybody's. So that's the other side is, take the answers as how people give them, but you'll be surprised because other people are going to say, wow, that's you. And how are you going to find out that that person says you are a people promoter if you're afraid to tell anyone your hopes and dreams?
True. All right. I love it. Okay, Sandy. So we're signing off for the year, right? We're going to come back in January, undetermined exactly what date. We want to thank all of our
Christmas
listeners.
break.
We're going to take a Christmas break. We want to thank all of our listeners for this year and past seasons. We've been getting a lot of good feedback, which is exciting to see. And I think it's our authenticity that's coming across as welcoming. And plus, we're talking about fun topics all the time. So, see you in 2023.
Happy holidays to everyone. We're looking forward to what 2023 brings.
Yes.
Oh no.
Happy holidays.
All right. Bye,
Thanks,
Amy.
Amy. Bye.